Okay, so if you're following this course and you're following through the Hello Bindings application, I'm looking at step 7 here, where we pretty much have working code, but as you'll see, there's a slight issue when using the local Azure function container, but we'll deal with that. So the first thing we want to do is run both the client mobile app and the server part, the Azure function, or the local version of Azure Functions. So we normally would right click and go set a startup project, but for multiple projects we have to right click the solution, properties. Under common properties, startup project, it's multiple startup projects. And for the function app, which is the cloud function, and for the Android app, I've got the action to start on both. Click OK. And this box up here will now say multiple startup projects, and we can start that. And then we let that spin up, and we should get both the I call it a server, it must be a server of sorts. Interesting with functions, you don't have to think about application servers, anything like that. They're just functions that you can access through post, get, etc. So quite nice sort of front end for RESTful APIs and things like that. Okay, the server's running up. It's on another window for me, so I'll just bring that in. So first time we try this, it's not going to work. Not that there's something wrong with the code. So there's the URL. Now, slight correction here. If I was running on the host computer here on a browser, I would indeed put that in. But the Android emulator, localhost is Android. Okay, so you use 10.0.2.2 to make reference to the host operating system running the emulator. Okay, so that will be changed to 10.0.2.2. The rest is the same. Now, if I click saying, we hope that will go and fetch a saying from this server, but we're not seeing a reaction and nothing's happened. In the next step, we're going to put some user feedback in to reflect that kind of thing, but at the moment we don't have that, so we're sort of guessing what's gone wrong. So if you drill into the model object, which is responsible for containing data and fetching data, you'll see some calls that drill down to this point, fetch saying async, and you'll see that it's trying to fetch payload asynchronously. With the mocked up one, that's just a delay, it always works, although I put in some failures for testing purposes. For the remote one, it is clearly failing, so we need to see where that is, and it's caught as an exception. So we should get a nice red dot when we do that. If not, clean and build your project and try again, as I found out just now. If I click this now, we should hit that breakpoint. Good. So we've got an exception, and if you hover over message here, you'll see clear text HTTP traffic to 10.0.2.2 not permitted. Okay, and that's fair enough, because the new policy for Android, I think it's the case for Apple as well, is that your applications shouldn't by default be hitting unencrypted connections. Now, when we start talking to real servers, we're going to be passing in keys to give you authentication, so that random people don't connect to your services, and that all needs to be encrypted. So naturally, if you host this on Azure, it's all encrypted. They deal with the certificates and all of that stuff, so you don't have to. When you're running the local one, you can apparently run this with HTTPS, but you'd have to set up a local certificate and mess around, and I don't want to do that. So we're going to basically create an exception for that particular IP address, 10.0.2.2. All right, so let's do that thing. So this is an Android specific thing. So in the Android project, we've got the resources folder. Let's create a folder in here. Add new folder. Call it XML. You could change it to something else, but that's okay. XML. And now we want a XML file in there. There is actually a template for XML in Visual Studio, pretty sure. Yeah. I'm going to name that very carefully as network security config. It doesn't have to be that name, but that's what I've called it. Give it time to do that. You'll see this change. There we go. Open it. Got some empty XML. And now what you need is what's in the notes. But I'll show it to you here anyway. Okay, so a little look at that. Domain config, clear text traffic permitted true for domain, include subdomains true, 10.0.2.2. All right, so rather than make this global for any IP address, that's what I understand. I haven't fully tested this, but I understand this will specify that, okay, for that IP address, it'll permit clear text, which is HTTP. Right, now you need to make, that's just an XML file, all right? So the Android system doesn't know anything about that. So if we go to properties, the Android manifest. Actually, let's just get hold of the name. Can we do that? Can we copy and paste it? Oh, never mind. Android manifest. Now, the application, Android label equals that. We want another attribute of that element. And it's, I'm going to take my notes here because I never remember these things. I'm going to copy and paste it from mine on my other screens. Copy that. So it's in the Android namespace. Android network security config XML/network security config. Okay. So hit that one. Now hopefully, I'm in demo mode, so I mean hopefully, I'm going to see this all working nicely. Just waiting for the server to spin up. Now, as I've mentioned, I don't edit these videos particularly, so by all means scrub forwards because I think this takes a little while. Okay, looks like something's happening. Okay, so no changes made to the code. We see a reaction now in the server, and the message is updated. So it's now working. Now, as I said, if you're using Azure to host your function, you don't need to do any of this because that will already be over a secure connection. So what's left now is to improve the user interface and handle errors such as that. It's not enough. As you saw, there was quite a long delay on the first time I ran that. That could really happen. There was no user feedback. That's not very good. But luckily, the infrastructure is now all in place to make that all rather easy to implement.